So, you're planning a move. Yeah, it can feel like a total mountain of a task, can it? That to do list just seems to grow and grow. But what if you had a clear map for the journey? That's exactly what we're doing here. We're going to break down the entire moving timeline from that very first decision to unpacking the final box, just to make the whole thing feel, well, a lot more manageable. So, let's kick things off with a one question that's probably on your mind right now. This is it, the big one, the question everyone asks. You can forget all those vague answers you've heard. What you really need is a realistic time frame so you can actually plan your life around this thing. How much time do you actually need to set aside for this major life event? And there it is. The big picture answer is you're looking at about 6 to 10 weeks. Now, that's not just the time it takes to pack and load up a truck. Nope. That's the entire journey. From the moment you decide, okay, we're moving, all the way through the paperwork, the sorting, the packing, and finally, to that amazing feeling of being properly settled in your new place. So, a 6 to 10 week window, how on earth do you even begin to break that down? Well, the best way is to treat it like a project with a clear master plan. Seriously, thinking about it in phases helps you focus on one thing at a time instead of just getting totally overwhelmed by everything at once. So, this is basically our roadmap for the whole thing. We kick it off with planning and paperwork, which then flows right into the super important decluttering phase. After that, we hit the big one, packing. Then, of course, comes the main event, moving day itself, which leads into unpacking, and finally, that wonderful feeling of actually settling in. So, let's walk through each one of these steps together. All right, let's dive right in at the beginning. The success of your entire move really, truly hinges on these first few steps. Getting the preparation right lays the foundation for a low-stress experience. If you nail this part, everything else just seems to fall into place so much more easily. So when does the clock officially start ticking? Well, the ideal time to really get the ball rolling is about 6 to 8 weeks before your target moving day. This gives you a really comfortable buffer for all the planning, the sorting, and tackling that initial admin without that awful last-minute panic. Now, listen, before a single box even gets taped up, you have to declutter. I mean it. This part is non-negotiable. Why? It's simple. Less stuff means less to pack, less to move, and less to pay for. But it's also a great mental reset, a chance to start fresh in your new home without all the old junk. Now, if you're in a small apartment, you might knock this out in a weekend. But for a larger family home, you gotta be realistic. This could easily take a few weeks. The key takeaway? Start early. And please don't forget the paperwork. This is kind of like the hidden timeline that runs alongside everything else. I mean, just look at this. Conveyancing alone can take up to 10 weeks. Wow. Then you've got to collect things like medical or school records, get your utilities transferred, and change your address with literally every company you've ever done business with. Each task has its own deadline, so a checklist here is going to be your absolute best friend. Okay, prep work's out of the way. Now it's time to face, let's be honest, the biggest physical task of the whole move, packing. This is the one that gets everybody. It is often the most demanding part of the whole process, and it almost always takes longer than you think it will. And this right here, this table brilliantly illustrates just how long we're talking. Just take a look at these numbers. If you're packing up a studio apartment on your own, you're still looking at a solid 8 to 12 hours of work. For a 3-bedroom home, that jumps to a full work week. We're talking 30 to 40 hours. And for bigger homes, you could be looking at over 75 hours. This is exactly why you have to spread that work out over a few weeks. But look, you can absolutely make those hours more efficient. We already talked about decluttering. That's your number one time saver. Beyond that, the strategy is pretty simple. Pack room by room. It helps you stay organized and sane. Use a checklist so you don't forget anything. And here's the pro tip. Pack an essentials box. This is for everything you'll need on that first night. Think toiletries, phone chargers, coffee maker, mugs. It is a total lifesaver. And of course, if time is your biggest enemy, hiring professional packers can turn weeks of your work into just a day or two of theirs. Okay, let's fast forward to the main event, the actual moving day. This is where bringing in the professionals can be a complete game changer and just have a massive impact on your timeline. Now, here is a huge piece of advice, so listen up. You need to book your movers early. About 2 months in advance is really the sweet spot. Why? Because the best companies, they get booked up so fast, especially if you're trying to move on a weekend or during the busy summer months. Leaving it to the last minute is a recipe for disaster. You might not get your first choice, or worse, any choice at all.
And this right here is exactly why booking those pros is so worth it. A DIY move can easily take 2 to 3 times longer than a professional one. What might be a miserable, multi-day struggle of renting a truck and begging your friends for help becomes a smooth, single-day operation when it's handled by an experienced crew. They've got the right equipment, the right technique, and a solid strategy.
Okay, so we've been throwing around these average timelines, right? But it's super important to remember that no two moves are ever exactly alike. There are several key variables that can either stretch out your personal timeline or maybe even shrink it. I mean, just think about it for a second. Moving as a single person is just a completely different world from moving a family of 5. A local move across town is nothing like an interstate one. Do you have any specialty items like a piano or delicate artwork? And here's a big one. What's the access like at both your old place and your new one? All of these things are going to change your total time commitment. Let's really zoom in on that last point about access, because this is one of the biggest, most overlooked time killers out there. We're talking about things you might not even think about, like multiple flights of stairs, a really narrow hallway, or a super long walk from where the truck has to park to your actual front door. These things can slow the whole day down dramatically. And we're not just talking about a few minutes here. Look at this. For every single flight of stairs, you can expect to add about 30 minutes for every 10 cubic meters of stuff being moved. That time adds up incredibly fast. Suddenly, what you thought was a 4-hour job has turned into a 6-hour job. Just like that. It's a perfect example of how one small detail can have a huge impact on your timeline. So, after all of this, what's the big takeaway? It all comes back to planning. That entire 6 to 10 week process is made so much simpler not by rushing, but by starting early and being really strategic about it. So, I'll leave you with this one final question to think about. Knowing everything we've just covered, what's the one small, manageable task you can start this week to get ahead of the curve and make your move just a little bit simpler?